Japan, so, sorry, India. So it would be um, great pleasure for me to interact with Mira-san too. So let's start talking about, this session. So today we are going to talk about our kind of favorite subject. It's food. So food is always kind of connect, and it's common for everybody in the world, and everybody loves one kind of food, different kind of food. So, let's talk about it. Talk about food culture is a very deep subject to tackle with. And I know what we could do is just touching a certain facet only at the, this chance to glimpse this vast sensibility. For me, as an artist, a Japanese living in the land of spice culture like India, it is a fascinating subject because it connects. Like food, music, and art, these are related to one senses, and all are derived to one place, derived from one place, I feel so. And it's a human life associated, and human senses. It comes from human senses, right? So in fact, variety of ideas came to my mind, and it was so difficult to chair, actually, the session of like food culture. Anyway, we'll try. Yeah. So when Narasimhan Sensei told me about this session, first thing which I know have come to my mind is that when I have come to India, started staying there for some time, after I came to India, my Japanese friend used to ask me, "Are you eating curry every day? So curry rice every day? Yeah, in every meal." So I was what to say, and the different way is that, and in turn, my Indian in-laws or relations ask me, "Yuriko, in Japan, what do you have for meal, like boiled rice? Yeah. Or you boil everything? Yeah. And how about raw fish? Oh my God." So it's very difficult anyway. And at last, you do not eat chapati every day. So this is a kind of question which I had to kind of face. But, how can I answer such questions? Yes, in India, we are every day eating dishes which is cooked with spices, but not the same curry rice repeated every day. Yeah, well, in Japan, people still do not know what we are every day cooking in Indian household. There are simply the dishes cooked with the certain spices as seasoning. It is not curry rice, yeah, which in Japan generally people know as Indian cuisine. Yeah, Indian dishes, it's a. So for answering the question, from my in-laws, like, is the Japanese only eats boiled rice or, food and not having chapati? I would like to take up the subject after this session. And I just wanted to kind of, I was writing something about, spice and curry and all, but, this, I think, Mira-san is going to tell us. So I will just kind of omit all this. Then, from my experience of 37 years of living in India, uh, Indian cooking preparations, I kind of realized, are all deeply connected and based with wellness of our health. It's not just, hot food, spicy food. No. And spice aura, as you know, it's almost like, it's a medicine. Yeah. And according to the regions and weather condition, which this decides the yield of certain crops, the material is cooked with combination of spices its medicines or other natural methods, including fermentation, to make balanced food for the human being to simply survive well in certain environmental conditions. The ladies of the house, of the mothers of a home, cook every day for the family members the tasty, balanced dishes as much as they can. The determination to keep their family members healthy is just cannot be called as a routine. Yeah? And it is a ritual and it is a prayer without religion, I feel so, really. And today, we are going to have a very interesting session. How the name curry rice or curry, Indo curry, has become a household name of Indian cuisine in Japan by Mira-san. I'm sure for the first time, the Indian cuisine was introduced to the Japanese people in Tokyo, how much it was exciting. I guess the dishes you can have now in Nakamuraya restaurant, Mira-san is going to mention about this later, yes, might be derived from and based on such home cooking, I think. Maybe this also Mira-san is going to talk. The dish is for the family members to be able to lead healthy and fulfilling life in the way that people was cooking, maybe in Bengal region of that time. So I will just, going to give the baton to Mira-san. Mira-san, よろしくお願いします。よろしくお願いします。はい。
Good evening, konbanwa, and hello to everyone. Professor Sushila Narasimhan, Ms. Yuriko Newton, and Dr. Ashok Jain, thank you very much for giving me this platform to talk about two of my favorite subjects, Japan and food. So I'm the happiest person now. I must give credit to Dr. Ashok Jain. I know Dr. Ashok Jain for the past 50 years. Radhika, Sushma, and Ashokji, they came to Japan around the same time that I came in 1974. So they have been with me. I've known them as family friends for the past 50 years. And when Ashok-san came to Japan in April, we were having dinner and, he said, Mira, why don't you talk about, Indian curry and Japanese curry on Kizuna? So that was the start. A little idea matured into a session today. Thank you very much, Ashokji, because thanks to you, it's all in place. I'd like to thank Kizuna for giving me this opportunity, because after all, it's very difficult to find a place where we can, communicate with people who have the same kind of likes, people who like Japan and people who like curry. I have been in Japan for the past 5 decades. And in this 5 decades, I have seen a vast change in the Japanese way of thinking, the Japanese living, their style, their food habits. Everything has changed in these 50 years. If you think of India, even India has changed in so many years. So given the fact that, 50 years is half a century, a country changing is very, very important. Now, the first thing we all ask is, oh, Japan has curry. Japan has curry rice. Mira-san, what is curry rice? Japan curry rice, Indian curry rice, you cannot put them together. Japanese curry rice is something which when you come to Japan, you got to eat it. Some of you may have come to Japan and eaten curry rice. It is entirely different. Don't put the two of them together. So how did it start? Where did it start? What is Japanese curry? So Japanese curry is basically a blend of spices thickened with some flour, and then you put in some meat and you put in some vegetables. So I always say that the Japanese curry is a mixture of American stew and Indian curry. Put together, it's a Japanese curry. Unlike us, where we have a chicken curry, we only have chicken. If we have a vegetable curry, we only have vegetable. Japanese, put it together and they make it curry. Japanese will eat it with white rice and they'll have something, they don't have pickles like we have in India, but somebody, started fukujinzuke. Fukujinzuke is pickled radish, carrots, cucumbers, all put together. And it's a kind of pickled dish, and which they will eat it with their rice and curry. This has been going on for quite some time, but why curry? What happened? How did it all start? Well, when I came to Japan in 1974, there were no spices available in Japan. If you walked into a supermarket, all you would find is cinnamon stick, bay leaf, and black pepper, and red chilies, whole red chilies. The reason being is that these particular spices like black pepper, cinnamon stick, and they were used in French cooking, and the red peppers were used in Chinese cooking. So if we wanted spices, we had to go to the very so-called expensive export quality supermarkets like Kinokuniya or other places, and the prices were exorbitant. Prices at that time for spices was very, so every time we moved to India or we went to India for a holiday, or if somebody was coming, we had to request them to buy us spices. I would say, can you please bring me spices? Can you please bring me spices? And that's how it started. But luckily at that time, we were lucky that in Kobe, there was Mr. Biniwala, and he had his shop, so we could get spices from them. So how did Japanese curry, why do the Japanese Japanese people love curry so much? How did it start? When did curry really come to Japan? How did it happen? When did everything start changing? Lots of questions, they need answers. Well, actually, curry was introduced to Japan in the Meiji period, and this is in 1868 to 1912. It was not brought in by Indians. It was brought in by the British Royal Navy people. So when they came into Japan, they brought their Cross and Blackwell curry powder, and that was the start of it. So they sold that, and many of the Western restaurants bought that, and they said, well, this is a nice new Western dish we need to make. So this was sold not as an Indian dish, it was sold as a Western dish. So it was called yoshoku. So it was to be sold only in the yoshoku mise, which is only the Western kind of. It was a premium dish. So it was, sold at high-end restaurants at a very good price. And what they did was that at that time, they would serve it in a different way. They would serve it in a different way, put it up in a fancy way, and they could charge for it. Let me just show you, how it was. So the thing is, this was how it was served. In the Western restaurants, they served rice on a white rice on a platter, and they put the curry in a sauce boat. Sauce boats at that time was associated with European food or British food. It was like elegant, it was supposed to be refined, good food. But then over the years, when the curry started going to the masses, these high refined services were not there. They would just platter the food on a plate or in an oval dish with rice and with, curry on the side. So this is how it changed. So when did it come to the common man? It didn't come to the common man for a very long time. Actually, from the high-end restaurants, this went on to the Marines. At that time, the sailors were suffering from beriberi, and so they realized that we need to give them something to make them healthy. And they realized that curry was healthy. So they started serving curry to the naval people. And they realized that they get the nutrition from curry. So that's how it started being. So every Friday, they would serve, curry rice to the Marines. The Marines loved it. Of course, by word of mouth, it spread to everybody. And then in the local stores and all, you could find it. People said, oh, curry is too difficult to make. So you would go to a restaurant, even to a local shop to eat it. Curry spread so fast because they loved it. It went on to the soba shop, it went to the regular shops, and then you have, kare udon, kare soba, and, different kinds of things. But this was all still in the 90s. 1910, 1915, and each shop would, kind of blend their own thing and put a little extra to make it different. This carried on for some time, but then, in the fancy restaurants, it went on. And then what they would do is they would add, a restaurant would put karage, like fried chicken, or they'd put pork cutlets on it to make it a little more expensive. So a regular curry at that time, I remember when we came, it was like 200 yen or 300 yen for that. But you put on a pork cutlet or something, it would become 500 yen. So every restaurant tried their own way of how to change it. this went on for some time. So when did Indian curry make its debut in Japan? Well, it started in 19, just a second, okay, I just need to show you this slide. Share. I'm sorry, I'm not so good at this, but so actually we have to give credit to Mr. Rash Behari Bose. He was the one who brought curry, Indian curry, into Japan. Now, Rash Behari Bose, as some of you may know, most of you may know, he was an INA revolutionary and he opposed the British force in India. But due to lack of help, and he was being pursued by the British, Mr. Bose fled to Japan. Now, coming to Japan, it was very difficult because he had no friends. But luckily, he made friends with the Soma family, and they sheltered him for a couple of years. And living with them, because the Soma family was very pro-Indian. They opposed the Britishers, and they wanted India to have its freedom. So they helped him, they helped him hide at his place. A couple of years later, Bose married Sumiko, the eldest daughter of the Soma family. And this Soma family ran a bakery called the Nakamuraya. Today, Nakamuraya is a big name because they are the pioneers of Indian curry. So even now, to date, they have a big store in Shinjuku where they still sell the first curry made by Bose, and they promote that just as much now. So he was the one. Naturally, he got married, and then he said, oh, well, he ate Japanese food for some time, but then he got tired, and so he taught his wife, Sumiko, how to make Indian food. Well, his wife was very good. He could enjoy, Indian food. And then, unluckily, his wife, after 8 years, passed away. And after she passed away, he threw himself into the independence movement, working. But later on, he opened a restaurant about the Nakamura bakery. On top of that, he opened a restaurant, and he called the food Jun Indo Kare. Jun means real. So Jun Indo Kare is, he said, the real Indian curry. And that's the start of the Indian curry in Japan. So we need to give credit to Rash Behari Bose for bringing, curry to Japan, Indian curry to Japan. And the Nakamura, of course, store has flourished. And as I said, it has gone on. And now the younger generation is, going on. So did it end there? No, it didn't. What happened was that in 1945, some Indian students came to Japan to study. And when they came here, they were part of the independent freedom movement. So, of course, they came here, they settled down, they got married to Japanese, but of course, they miss Indian food. They realized the lack of Indian food in Japan. So, Mr. Nair, who has a Nair restaurant in Ginza, came in 1945, and in 1947, he opened the Nair restaurant. And it's still running to date. It's run by his son and his grandson now. So it's running very well. So the Nair restaurant is there. And then later on, Mr. Murthy from Ajanta restaurant came, and he also came as a student, and he and Mr. Nair were good friends. And he opened the restaurant called Ajanta in 1954. So these were the start of it. And at this particular time, there were many Indians settled in Kobe. And because they came to work in the pearl industry, the pearls were all in Kobe. So people came there and they were settled there. And that's where a few more Indian restaurants started. And that's where the spice shop started. So Mr. Biniwala was the first one to start his spice shop in Kobe. So when we came in 1974, we were lucky enough that we could order some of them from him. And that's how it started. Then came the big groups, the corporates of the big companies came in. Taj Hotels. Taj Hotels were the first one to set their foot into Japan. And they opened their, first, their flagship in Ginza. Now, Ginza is a prime location. It's a very prime location. And they were smart enough to take a shop right above the Government of India Tourist Office. And it was on the second floor. It was plush. It was very well decorated. And it was a very elegant restaurant. So what happened was that a lot of us would go up there to have our parties. Any dignitaries who came to Japan, we would have parties at at Ashoka. So Ashoka was one of the, very, very popular restaurants at that time. And the seating capacity was also like 60, 70 people. And they had beautiful Indian carvings, beautiful paintings, and it raised the standard of fine dining. So that's where Taj brought in, the good concept of good restaurants. Then in the 1968, Mahara restaurant, the Maharaja chain of restaurants started having their restaurants. Of course, this kind of started the stream of restaurants, and many other restaurants opened. Taj opened in 74, Moti opened in 78, Raj Mahal, Samrat, and me and my husband also, we started the restaurant called Bindi in 1984. And to date, a lot of them are still, on and still working. I closed mine, 20 years back. But yes, the only sad part is that at that given time, the only thing that everybody had was, North Indian food. So everywhere you went, it was North Indian food. So each and every restaurant kind of followed the same thing: naan, tandoori chicken, and keema curry and all that. So this kind of went on for some time. So it became the format for having an Indian restaurant. You want to have an Indian restaurant, you must have naan, you must have the following things. So in the 80s, when my husband and I started Bindi, we said we don't want to follow the trend. So we started Indian home style cooking, and we started having chapatis, puris, parathas, and the like. And we would have like dal, chawal, sabzi, and ghar ka sabzi. And I was not, my husband was a Gujarati, so we would have like Gujarati food and all that. And on Sundays we would serve thalis, and that's when we realized that there was quite a quite a lot of people who wanted to have the food at home, and that's why we started delivery service as well. Now the thing is, in the 90s, come the 90s, Japan had the economy bubble. Now, when the economy bubble happened, people had money. People were being paid generously. So young people traveled all over the world. People went out. People went out for parties. They had, drank. So I remember during the 80s and 90s, the restaurant was full, lunch and dinner. It was peak time for all restaurants. Indian restaurants were ready. And the other thing is, what happened was that a lot of the people realized that, oh, Indian food is so delicious. So they started going for Indian food. And once they started that, the people realized that, oh, we can travel to India. People traveled to India. Indian culture was fascinating for most of them. And that's where everything changed for the Indian restaurant and for Indian curries in Japan. Come 1990, and there was an influx of IT students. The IT students all came to Japan. And on top of that, Japan opened its doors to the IT skilled workers. Japan needed, all these. So Wipro and all these Pentagon and all these IT companies started having offices in Japan. So the number of young Indians increased. It increased by multifold. And because it multifolded, there was food was needed. So food restaurants started cropping up at every corner. You would go and you'd find Bangladeshi people, Nepali people running Indian restaurants. And that's where everybody started, the appetite for Indian food grew, not only amongst the foreigners, but amongst the Japanese as well. Young Japanese would go, they started taking cooking lessons. I remember having cooking classes, and, it was very interesting to see all these people coming, and the curiosity they had was, oh my gosh, why are you putting this? What is this? How is this? And they were like little children who had, who had opened a Pandora box, not knowing what is what. And that was where, I was lucky to be there at the right time, at the right place. And for the past 45 years, I've been teaching Indian cooking, and not only to the locals, but even at culinary schools. So that's why they say, timing is everything. Even to date, I do hold my cooking classes, and it's one of my favorite things to teach them. And because they're always so, interested. Well, curry came to Japan, and along with that, the Japanese wanted to eat, but they couldn't go out and eat every day. So the Japanese curry companies they decided to cater to them. They started making retort packs of different curries. It was, if you look, it's curry, 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 curry. It's like, what? You know, and it was like beef curry, this curry, that curry, and you can see Nakamura curry, you can see. So these were the kind of things. Even to date, if you go, it's flooded with all these retort packs. Japanese people found it very interesting that they could just take a packet home, put it into hot water, and just eat it in 2 minutes if they just had to cook rice at home. Not only that, the House Shokuhin and SB and all these snack makers took it a step further. They started making, snacks. So they had curry noodles, they had like tongarikon, which is very, very popular with kids. And that was like with bamon curry, garamcho. This is to date my favorite. I eat a lot of that. And it's spicy potato chips. Doritos came up with a spicy curry taste. And, so there were lots of all these kind of curried flavor snacks, which were, invading the market. And I think that was the whole thing that was very, very interesting. And people got hooked onto curry very nicely. This is something a lot of you might not know. Curry pan. Curry pan, oh my gosh, kids love it. Schoolboys on their way to school, on the way back from school, they stop at a bakery. Most bakeries will sell this curry pan, which is it's a bread dough, and it's stuffed with dry curry. And of course, now you can get keema curry, you can get pork curry, and different kinds of flavors nowadays. And so curry pan is still to date. It started way, way, way back. Even when I came to Japan, it was there. So it's more than 50 years old. And to date, it is still going. This is, of course, a favorite. But also the Japanese came up with something called dry curry. So dry curry was something like, instead of having too much of gravy on the thing, they would just put the rice and put the curry on top so that it doesn't seep through, and they would just eat it. So dry curry was, and then they would to enhance the flavor or to make it more nutritious, they would put in some boiled eggs on top, or they would put in some karaage, or they'd put up different things on it. So the idea of curry, not only it was like, okay, I must have it with rice, but Japanese are very innovative. They are very, very innovative, and they come up with a lot of different kinds of food items. I mean, you can have pizza with curry. Do you know that? In Japan, only Japan can you go and have pizza with tandoori chicken on your pizza. So, they are very innovative, and they love to try different things. Once they get hooked onto something, they really try their best. And of course, as I said, cooking classes became a norm. This is with me, with all my cooking students. And if you can notice how serious they are, they have their paper in hand, they have their pen in hand, a word from your mouth, and they write it down. They jot down everything you say as if, if I forget it, kind of a thing. But they are very, very, that's one thing about the Japanese. I enjoy teaching the Japanese is because they are keen learners and they learn everything very well. Then after the IT people came in recently, we had the South Indian trend in Tokyo. The South Indian trend, oh my gosh, it's hit Japan like a hurricane. We always had to wait till we went to India to have our dosas and all. Now, dosas, rasam, sambar has become a common word. Everybody loves to have it, So this is something that is going on very well. Of course, people started serving. The shops wanted something different. They were tired of the thalis of the North Indian fare. So they said, okay, let's have these sapad. So they started serving Indian meals on banana leaf. This is one of my favorite things, and I miss South Indian food a lot. So I'm the happiest person as of now. And I go at least once a week to have my, share of dosas. Here I'm enjoying these girls, if you can see, they have been to India like 10 times, and they always accompany me when I go to eat, the dosas and South Indian food, and it's always served on banana leaves. So this is my to-go place, and 3 of us usually go there. Next, before I go to something else, I just need to tell you about a little more. I'm going to share this, and we only have another 5 minutes to go. So I'm just going to say, now South Indian food, of course, is very, very good. But ultimately, Japanese, why are they so much into South Indian food? Why did South Indian food suddenly make this appearance into Japan, where North India food was having a heyday. Well, it all started with Ayurveda. Ayurveda, yoga. So Japanese people were way into yoga. Anybody and everybody was doing yoga. So they wanted to do yoga. Naturally, they'd go to India. Initially, everybody started going to Rishikesh and to North India for the yoga sessions. But then they realized they wanted to do Ayurveda. Ayurveda became a big thing. So all started going to Kerala. Once they went to Kerala and they started eating dosas and South Indian food, they realized, oh my, there's something new to Indian food. It's not just tandoori chicken and naan and, keema curry. So that caught on. A lot of the youngsters who went there. Also, there were many, many young Indians who went to, South India to learn Bharatnatyam and, Kathakali and not Kathakali, Bharatnatyam, Odissi and all that. So they got, the taste of South Indian food. And they said, oh, South Indian food is much lighter than North Indian food. It's easy to digest. So that caught on. And that's how South Indian food, when it came into Japan, it just hit on. Everybody just loved it. So even I have friends who say, let's go for dosa, So they will say, oh, how about naan? No, I don't want naan. I want to eat dosas. So they have realized that naan is not everything. So enjoying South Indian food, and also what you can see them like little children when the South Indian restaurants do the 1 meter filter coffee, they're like, oh my gosh, isn't he going to, drop it? So the fascination for all Indian has been there for a very, very long time. Well, food is there, everything is there. How about Indian culture? Oh no, there's so much of Indian culture now. It has become very popular. And it's become, this is called Namaste India. Now, Namaste India is a mela. It's actually a mela, which is held at the end of every September. And it's held at Yoyogi Koen, which is a huge park in Tokyo. And Namaste India will have, they have food stalls, they have bangles, they have mojuris, they have somebody doing mehndi on stage. You have people doing, Japanese dancers, Indian dancers performing Bollywood dances, Indian dancing. If you look at this, I mean, there is a crowd. You have to literally walk you have to find your way through and say, excuse me. And if you're holding food, you have to be very careful not to spill it. Do you know how many people come to this festival in 2 days? 200,000 people in 2 days. So what we would say in India, you would say 2 lakh people. 2 lakh people come to this festival, and it grows every year. When we started it initially 30 years ago, there would be barely 50 people, 100 people, 300 people. Now it's 2 lakh, and it doesn't stop. You have different kind of food. You have, people are selling kurtas, pajamas. You want anything. There are stores selling Indian utensils. There's a spice stores. So it's a huge mela. And all the Japanese who love Indian food definitely are there. And they say, are you going to Namaste India? So it's become a place to meet, compare notes, and talk about different things. One thing good about is that if you can see, this is Incredible India. So this particular Namaste India is supported by the government of India, the tourist office, Air India, and many big corporations. So because of that, and usually Air India will kind of, donate a air ticket to India. So it makes the thing more exciting. On stage, they invite people from India to dance, the local dancers, Japanese groups of local dancers, Indian dancers come on stage and perform for 2 days. So it's a very, very exciting, a very, very lively place, to go there. Of course, this has been there. Namaste India is there. But what is the next thing that's happening? What is the next thing that has caught the Japanese eye? Something has to catch their eyes. Otherwise, they cannot, continue. Food, of course, we have managed to get them hooked onto Indian food. But the next thing is Indian movies. So many of the Japanese are traveling to India. They watch movies in India. Bollywood movies are becoming very popular. Actually, there's one theater in Shinjuku, and there's one theater in Chiba, where regularly they show South Indian movies. So I remember on TV, they were showing the movie Bahubali, and all these Japanese, there was a rental shop nearby. They had all gone to the rental shop, got rental saris, and they were all dressed in saris and salwar kurtas at the Bahubali thing. And we saw it on TV and said, what's going on? So when Japanese like something, they go head on into it, and they go with everything, the clothes and the food and everything. So movies are the next thing. RR, oh my gosh, all my Japanese, I haven't seen it. All my Japanese students will say, Sensei, did you see RR? I said, no. Why? Go see it. It's nice. So, when they learn something or they like something, they really go deep into it. I think they know more about Indian things than I would know. And then compared to that, now we've actually got a mithai shop in Tokyo, which is, again, a new thing. Finding mithai in Tokyo, I always had to tell people, mithai le aao, yaar, mithai le aao. Everybody coming. But now there's a mithai wala shops. And so we can get bundi ka laddus, we can get milk cake and everything, which is, of course, lovely. So compared to many years ago, compared to 50 years ago, how is it in Japan? Indian food is at its peak. Indian culture is at its peak. Everybody wants to. If I say there's a new Indian restaurant to my students, Sensei, let's go. When are we going? So everybody's so interested into seeing this. Recently, some of the online stores and the regular stores, they have started selling things we never saw. Vegetables like drumsticks, beets, methi leaves. Oh my gosh, amla. Every time I go to India, I'd see that. But now there are stores where they sell all this. They import it. They import it like every Thursday. The shipment comes, so they'll put it up Thursday. This is guar, cluster beans. I don't think I used to make Sindhi curry without guar, but now I can make Sindhi curry with guar in it. So, it makes a lot of difference, having those kind of things. And even the Japanese are enjoying it, going to all these spice shops. Now, coming to an end, I'd like to say, I'd just like to, share for people who are interested. These are some of the cooking books that I have written. This book, the first one, Hajimete no Indo Ryori, Healthy Way to Cooking, this was in 1996. This was the first book, and it sold very well. It was a very well, accepted book. And then I took actually a crew to India, and we made curries from all over India. And so we said South India, North India, East India, West India. And then, of course, Japanese always say, oh, you eat curry rice all the time. What do you eat at 3 o'clock with tea? Do you have any snacks in India? So for that, I did this motto tabeta Indo Ryori. It means I want to eat more of Indian food. And there I had snacks and all. Luckily, as I said, I was at the right place. And then I published a book on world cooking with spices. So, all over the world, we use spices, and there are many similarities between Indian spices and world spices. And this is where we did herb and spice cooking. Luckily, I'm very much into Ayurveda, and I still practice Ayurveda a lot. And then they had this Toyo Igaku, and this is Ishoku Dogen. Ishoku Dogen is a very common phrase that we use in Japan. And so this was a book on Kampo, Chinese medicine, and Ayurveda, and how to eat and cook with that. And this Uebaba Sensei was one of the teachers who used to teach us. So it was very, very nice to do that. I also collaborated with some other Asian teachers, because in Japan, we realized that Chinese teacher, the Thai teacher, and we all realized that we had so much in common. So the Korean teacher, we all collaborated, and we had some books done there. So this brings me to the end of the slide. And changes are happening in Japan. And if you come to Japan now, compared to 50 years ago, the younger children, they are taller, they are healthier, because, the diet has changed. They're not eating just Japanese food all the time. They're eating a lot of Western food, and they're going out and trying out various things. Bookstores are full of books on curries by Japanese chefs, Indian chefs. Magazines are brimming with recipes of curries and Japanese kind, West Indian style. supermarkets are full. Today, you can even go to any supermarket, the smallest supermarket, and you can find turmeric, cumin, coriander, and the regular spices. So those days of not finding any spices in supermarkets is gone. And it has become much easier now for people to buy it. Also, Indian food is very, very popular because vegetarianism and vegan is becoming very, very popular. So people realize that they can go to Indian restaurants and, have food which is good for them. Changes are happening in Japan, and it's still continuing, all for the better. So I'm not going to be there for the next 50 years, but at least for the next 10 years and 20 years, I'm looking forward to the different changes in Japan. And as far as I can contribute, I'd love to contribute to these kind of changes because it makes a lot of difference, So, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So, and I'm, lucky to be here in Japan doing what I'm doing. Thank you all very much for listening to me. I hope it was, I hope it was worth listening to. And once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about, you can see my face, you can see how much joy I have when I'm talking about food in Japan, right, Ashok-san? So thank you very, very much for today. And yes, it's back to you.
Thank
Yuriko?
you so much.
Yeah, Sushila,
It was really a very exciting and lively presentation. Thank you so much. Yes, Yuriko-san, you can start with the question answers and then you can wrap up with.
Okay. All right. So everyone, it was such a nice, very lively talk which Meera-san has given us, and lots of kind of practical what is happening in Japan. Even I don't know, Meera-san, what is happening, right now in Japan about Indian food, really. So I have heard sometime, yeah. So Golgappa is available in,
Yes.
online. That's what I have heard from somebody. Then I was taken aback.
I wanted to say, but I wanted to say that, but I was looking at the time. Actually, there's a chaat shops. 3 or 4 chaat shops have come up, and we can have pani puri, bhel puri, sev puri. So most of us, we go there on the weekends and okay, let's go for chaat. We're like starving for chaat.
Oh my God.
At home. But yes, it has become very popular now.
Yeah. And I would love to kind of, get some of the, spices, which is related to Ayurveda, used in the cooking. So if you can, give some kind of a, insight about this, please. Meera-san.
So what are the spices which are basically in Ayurveda? Basically, as I told you, I've been studying Ayurveda for a long time. The whole thing with Ayurveda, it's not just one person. It has to be the person's, dosa, what kind of a person he is. You have to know your vata or pitta or kapha, and accordingly you would use your spices. But one spice which everybody, all the 3 doshas can use is turmeric. Like for me, I hardly take, any medicines. For me, every time I have a cold, if I have a cough or a cold coming up, I always put turmeric in warm water and gargle and drink it up. And every morning I try to take a pinch of turmeric. And ginger, cinnamon is another thing which is very good, especially if there's any infection or anything. Cinnamon is a very good thing. So these kind of things are nice to know. And I always say the best thing is you can go online, check what kind of dosha you are. Once you know your dosha, then you can say, okay, I can have this, I can have that. Because like with me, I cannot have too much of ginger. I cannot have too much of garlic because I'm vata. So once you know your dosha, then you know what you should have and what you shouldn't have. So though I know about it, I would not say everybody do it because that would not suit everybody. But basically, turmeric is one thing, cinnamon is one thing. These are 2 things which could be used by everybody in moderation, not going overboard, using it in moderation. But since we use turmeric in our cooking most of the time, we don't have to drink it separately, So having turmeric in your food is more than enough. It's only, as I said, when I'm coming down with a cold or something, that I will gargle with turmeric. But usually in my curries, whatever turmeric is there, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Hope that
And
question.
like the turmeric which I use most of the time for me and for my husband, for two people cooking, it's just a kind of a 1/4 teaspoon, like 1 time dal or 2 times dal. If you cook all such kind of moderate usage,
The
is
best.
the thing. The thing, it's the key, I think. And
True.
sometimes people hear from somewhere, zira is good for this, lasun is good for this, that garlic is good for, and tend to kind of overtake or taking it every day or whatever. So it makes some difference. So I hope that people understand what is kind of Ayurveda. And you said very correctly that there are doshas. So we have a tendencies, each person has different tendencies, according to that tendency that you have to take the medications properly. So nice. Thank you so much, Meera.
Thank you very, very much.
And and I want to know if from the listeners, from the participants of this lecture, if you have some questions, bataiye, please. Do you have any questions? Ashok-san? Jen Sensei? Do you have something?
Well, I just wanted to ask whether are there any places where one can eat both Japanese and Indian food? I mean, I wonder whether people who eat Indian food simultaneously would eat Japanese, or it's only either Japanese or.
The thing is that Indian restaurants will not serve Japanese food. So even if you go to a place that's serving Indian food, they will not have Japanese food. But you could go to a Japanese restaurant and they would be serving Japanese curry, which is slightly Indianized. Because now a lot of the chefs have started using spices in their own thing. And a lot of the chefs are very proud of making their own curry. As a matter of fact, Ashok-san, this is something that is very interesting. I came across that every state, every prefecture in Japan has its own curry. Like there's a prefecture which grows a lot of, which has a lot of oysters. So they have curry with oysters in it. There's another place which has black pork. So they have pork. And it becomes like konogenchi no tokubetsu curry. And then they, they sell it like that. So my friends will say, oh, I'm going down to Hiroshima. I need to eat oyster curry. And I said, why? She says, because Hiroshima is famous for oyster, but you cannot get it over here. Or there's another place where they grow a lot of olives. And they've started making olive curries with olives in it. And that's become a boom. So every prefecture is trying to come up with their own kind of things. Housewives are making their own things. And I said, they are putting two and two. They're putting the Japanese curry. So people come to me and say, Sensei, can you teach us how to make with Japanese curry? Can I put these spices? I said, sure, you can use this. You can put in the spices, saute the spices, and then make your curry the regular way. So now they are trying to, put Indian spices into the way they are making Japanese curry. So it's changing a lot. And people are getting, very, very adventurous. Yes.
I wonder whether we should try these things in India too.
Yes, you should. You should.
Isn't it?
Because the thing is, you see, we already have it. For example, if you go down south, you have the same dal, you have the same tur dal, but you make sambar there. But if you come north, you make it differently. If you come to Sindhis, we make Sindhi curry out of it. Tur dal. So we have the same thing, but we also have to make something which is in one particular state. This state only makes this.
That's the point. It's a good, good
it's a good thing to show that.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much. The time is finishing. The clock is ticking. So we are going to closing our session slowly. But before, Sensei, Narasimhan Sensei,
you can, Yuriko-san, you can share your anecdote.
Yeah. So let me share my anecdote.
Yes.
So, what? Yeah, I told you, like, yeah, how should I answer the question from the Indian people that in Japan do people eat chapati? I know after listening to Mira-san, what I am writing right now is like a 35 years ago kibat. It's now it's different, really. That Japanese
Right.
people more has a really deep understanding, of
Oh,
India,
yes.
Indian cuisine now. So
See,
what is written,
Yurika-san,
for me. Hi.
Yurika-san, we can buy frozen chapatis, frozen parathas. We can find
Yeah.
everything over here now.
Yes, yes. So anyway, so well, I will go straight away into anecdote. It's about senses, and I really, feel that, Indian cooking system is so, what should I say, strong and flexible. And it can be kind of assimilated by other countries like, Japan. Of course, Japanese people are very keen about, assimilation, what should I, analyzing and making it adaptation, whatever. So it's very interesting. The anecdote which I want to share with you is that I am talking about one incident happened in one Indian restaurant in Japan. That is, I think, almost 25 years ago. Again, this restaurant has been started with a great enthusiasm by a quite well-known, like a king of hotel industry India kind of a person. The recipe, the spice, the ingredients used are all specified by this gentleman. I have seen the person was checking the list of ingredients going to be cooked in Japan, specifying the spice in front of my eyes, actually, on the conference table. Like Mia-san, he was telling, the person to procure about one particular red chili from Kashmir, from some such place. I really don't know. But he was not only a kind of a powdered chili, which is MDH, masala, whatever. No, he was always, he was kind of specifying. So there was, after this restaurant has opened and started running, there was a trained cook, Japanese cook, or chef, came to learn about Indian cooking at the restaurant. And of course, the Japanese chef must work in the restaurant with Indian sous chef, yeah, and learn. After barely a week or 10 days, I have heard this story from the manager of that restaurant. After barely 10 days a week, that Japanese chef quits the job and saying there is nothing to learn in Indian cooking. He says, he or she, I don't know. It is only adding one thing or the other. Upar se dalte jaane ka hai, such kind of thing. Yeah, I was taken aback, really. I was taken aback when I heard this from the manager of the restaurant, who has created and established the place. I think this Japanese chef does not understand any bit of the depth and profound system, yeah, of Indian cooking. The subtlety, of taste which is created of spices by spices, masalas, ground masalas, and fermentations.
Right.
And the taste and subtle difference of feelings created by different cooking method. Like in the tandoor and the charcoal. And the cooking vessel has difference also. Like,
Right.
my experience is that, recently I started cooking my dal in handis only, not pressure cookers. So difference of the dal cooked in pressure cooking and the handi is tremendous. I didn't know. It's like mekara uroko. It's really, really, yeah.
Yeah.
So such kind of, things that Japanese chef was not kind of realizing. Yeah. And after staying in India for, 37 years, I can say one thing very loud, that wherever you are, to respect the others and try to understand other culture is the key to make yourself with peace. Yeah. And
Great.
Mira-san,
Can I just say
Mira-san
something?
did.
Yeah,
Sure.
just something. The thing is, I don't blame the Japanese chef. I blame the Indian
Yeah.
chef, because to
Oh,
Japanese,
really?
unless you don't explain things to them properly, and they don't
Yeah.
see the reason why you're doing that, they will not understand it. So it was the mistake of the chef, the Indian chef, not teaching him, not giving him the reasoning behind it, because Japanese always want reasoning. So once you say, give them the reason, they are very good.
I
Right.
understand. It's a kind of a, yes, communication thing must have happened. Communication difficulty must have happened at that time. Yes.
Can
Yeah.
I just share one thing? I just came
Sure.
across this morning. I was
Yeah.
going through a survey, and this survey is done by House Shokuhin, which is one of the biggest, spice dealers in Japan. And they say each year, Japan eats 48.6 plates of curry per person. So every
Oh.
week, they're eating 1 plate of curry rice. And
Mm.
there's a graph over here. I don't know if you can see.
Mm.
Over 90%.
Mm.
90% Japanese people are eating curry more than once per year. Only 6.5% said they don't eat curry. And then
Oh.
the most popular foods in Japan, Japanese curry tops first. And children, the top ranking favorite food of children, first is sushi, second is sashimi, third is yakiniku, the fourth is curry. So curry is up in a lot of things. And so I thought I might as well share with you, because House Shokuhin does this survey every year, and they've realized that Japan is way, way, way into it. Thank you very much.
Great.
Sorry. I think we are running out of time.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mira Sensei. Mira-san
Thank you very, very
and
much.
Ashok Sensei, yeah, and Narasimhan Sensei. And thank you to every participant of this lecture. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very
And hope this Kizuna lecture series would create more and more Japanese people.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
please, Sushila Sensei.
So thank you very much, Mira-san, for a
Pleasure.
very interesting and lively, in fact, it's so exciting presentation, which has aroused our culinary cravings. And it was really wonderful having Yuriko-san as the chair and listening to her personal experiences, not only about Indian art, but also about Indian meals. It was really a fusion of art and cooking. Thank you both very much for your interest in Kizuna activities and participation. Hope to see you again. Mira-san has already sown the seeds of praise for the aromatic Indian food and spices. And in November, Ms. Pallavi Iyer, based in Spain, she will be talking on orienting an Indian in Japan. And probably she will also refer to Jun Indo curry. So I hope we will make the announcement. It's on 16th November, and please join. All the lectures are available on YouTube and Kizuna India Japan Forum and the MOSAI website. And on behalf of the Kizuna India Japan Study Forum, I thank all the participants for joining us from various parts of country via Zoom. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you very much.
Namaste. Thank you very much. Namaste.
And hope, Mira-san, we will have another lecture by you and again chaired by Yuriko-san.
Definitely. Anytime. Anytime.
Anytime. Yes.
Anytime I'm willing to do it. Thank you very much.